Now, Executive Suite with WPRI.com reporter Ted Nisi.
Sovereign Bank has a new name, Santander. But though the sign on the door has changed, the bank's goals in Rhode Island's competitive financial sector haven't, including advising a robust portfolio of business clients, large and small. This week on the first half of Executive Suite, Managing Director of Corporate Banking at Santander Bank, Michael Lee. Plus, East Providence's M.R.T. Jewelers has been selling earrings, rings, and other items to Southern New Englanders for nearly a century. Now a member of the family that owns M.R.T. has created a new necklace that can be worn 4 different ways. It's called Chainge, and he has high hopes for it. This week on the second half of Executive Suite, Vice President of M.R.T. Jewelers, David Audette. Welcome to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi. As you heard there, later in the show, we'll hear from David Audette about M.R.T. Jewelers. Been around in Rhode Island since the end of World War I, so plenty to talk about there. But right now, I'm very pleased to welcome Mike Lee from Santander Bank. Mike, thanks for being here.
Great to be with you, Ted.
Are people having any trouble with the pronunciation? That we went through that with Brian Azar when he was on.
Occasionally they do, but we do some clever things to help people pronounce the name.
You have the commercials where people say it and everything. Do you have all the employees saying it right at this point?
At this point, we do, yes.
So first, let's get people a sense of who you are inside the bank. What's your portfolio? What do you do at Santander?
Sure. So I'm responsible for the commercial banking activities within Santander here in the U.S. We have 9 business lines. They range from commercial and industrial companies, which we define as companies that have sales up to $500 million. It includes other companies like commercial real estate businesses. So again, it's about a $30 billion business.
And I think, though you have responsibility for more than Rhode Island, you are yourself a Rhode Islander, right?
I am. I'm a native here to Rhode Island and still live in the state.
And you know my friend Mike Montecalvo, I believe.
A good friend of mine, yes. Mike's a good person.
Goes back a few years. So as I mentioned, we had Brian Azar, your Rhode Island president at Santander, on the show last fall. He was talking about this rebranding. Obviously, that's been a big focus from Sovereign to Santander in recent months. It's been about 6 months since we talked to him, so I'm curious, how's that going? How's the rollout of the new identity of the bank going from the bank's perspective?
Well, we think it's going quite well. You know, there's a fair amount of work that goes on before you do a brand change, and for our company, we've worked for over 2 years in preparing. We want to make sure that it's seamless to the clients and to the marketplace. As you might imagine, a fair amount of work on the technology. And with Santander, we have the opportunity now to align with a global powerhouse. Our brand is well recognized throughout the world. And we believe that the innovation that exists in other parts of the country, we look forward to bringing here and growing the U.S.
And for people who don't know, the name, it's Banco Santander in Spain, right? Named after the town where the bank was started?
That's correct.
There are people, we have all our foreign banks, and we've got to keep track of who's owning who. So have there been any challenges so far with the rebranding? Anything other than saying the name? Anything in particular as you've gone through this 6-month period so far?
Yeah, I think we've been able to manage through the process quite well. You know, the biggest challenge when you do a brand change is all the facilities and the signage and the technology. And because we had ample time to prepare, there have been very few challenges along the way. And so we're very pleased with the outcome and the integration.
I think one thing people wonder is when you have, this is obviously a lot had to be put into new signs, new ties, new everything to be the Santander identity, but how much does it matter in terms of how the bank operates? You know, you were bought a few years before the name change when you were still Sovereign. Are there differences inside the bank for those of you who are part of the bank inside it?
Typically, there's some change relative to the technology. The most important change is what you do as part of the brand launch. So for us, it's the product innovation. If you're a consumer, you've probably noticed 2 of the recent launches, Extra 20, which is a consumer product where we pay the clients to do business with us. And the second is our Bravo credit card. That credit card is exciting in that the benefits are 3 times the rewards. On the commercial side, we've also made some changes. The most important is with our online banking platform. And a second initiative are corporate cards. These are like consumer debit cards for commercial businesses. So as part of the change, these are some of the exciting things that we're doing that are different.
I think sometimes people, when they think of the Rhode Island banking sector, think of Citizens Downtown, Bank of America, your alma mater when it used to be Fleet, and then a lot of other banks scrambling for a share. But Santander, and when it was Sovereign, has a pretty sizable footprint around here, right?
We do. We service about 80,000 households. In the commercial area, one of the things that we can help with companies in the Rhode Island marketplace that are doing business overseas, we're internationally in 40 different markets. So from the perspective of companies looking to do business in export or import, we have a very robust platform to help them.
And do you see that presence growing for Santander? I mean, how much are you doubling down on this area? Is there a look to expand in other markets? How do you think about that, the future growth?
Yeah, Rhode Island's an important area for us. We have over 800 of our team members that live and work in the community, and as our company grows, we intend to grow with the company. Interestingly, we did an economic breakfast series in March, and we had 350 business leaders participate. We do a real-time survey. One of the things that we asked the respondents is how they felt about their businesses and growth. And in the state of Rhode Island, over 50% of the respondents saw their companies and their sales growing, and over 50% of the respondents also felt that they were going to hire over the course of the year. So I think there's optimism in the state as we look out over 2014. So I think that bodes well for us.
I think that will surprise people perhaps with the amount of negative publicity the economy in Rhode Island has been getting. What do you attribute that to with the bit of optimism you saw there with business leaders at the annual breakfast?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. When you look at Rhode Island as a place to do business and quality of life, there are a lot of things that attract people to come and to remain here in the state. I think for companies to be successful, you need to have strong education in labor pools. We've got some of the finest schools and universities. Santander in particular knows that supporting universities are an important gateway to help economic development. So I think there's a link between having a good educated labor pool and job creation and job growth.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to hear from Mike Lee about what he's seeing in the commercial banking side at Santander and what it bodes for the future of the Rhode Island economy. And later, we'll hear from David Audette about his family-owned business, M.R.T. Jewelers. Stick with us on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nesi. Later on in the show, we're going to hear from David Audette of M.R.T. Jewelers in East Providence. But right now, pleased to be joined by Mike Lee. He is the Managing Director of Corporate Banking. I get that right?
You did.
At Santander Bank. Santander, that's how you say it. Santander.
Santander.
Santander. We have Rhode Islanders speaking Spanish. Very impressive with that. A lot of R's for them to keep track of in that. So, as I said, corporate banking, that's your world at Santander, Mike, in particular. And I always like to hear from bankers because you have sort of with loan portfolios and the clients you talk to, get a sort of a sense of what's going on deeper inside the economy. What's your feeling right now? What are the trends you're seeing, especially for the Rhode Island economy this year and moving forward? What are you seeing from your clients and when you talk to them?
Sure. So today I think we're in the 5th year of a recovery, and I think companies have done a very good job in managing to be more efficient. They've stretched the productivity band, but I think we're going to embark on a phase of growth. One of the lead indicators that suggests that to be the case to me, again, we talked earlier about our economic breakfast, and when we surveyed the respondents here in Rhode Island, of the 350 business leaders, almost half of the respondents felt that they were going to make investments in capital expenditures. So these would be machinery, equipment, plant expansion. And I think when you're doing that, it's anticipating growth and it's on the basis of increased sales. So I think that speaks to the possibility for future growth through 2014 and beyond. In terms of what we see within our portfolios, we've returned now to what I would refer to as a normalized phase. We've worked through the problems that occurred through the recession after the Lehman bankruptcy in 2008. And so I think most companies are much better positioned from a capital base. And so we're encouraged by the trends that we see.
It is amazing. We're now more than 5 years since Lehman collapsed and everything that happened after that, and that we're still talking almost about what feels like a new recovery to people. We're still talking about the early stages, even though we're years now into expansion since the recession formally ended in '09. Have you been surprised by how long it took, particularly for Rhode Island, to get back to some stability and maybe some growth? Or is this kind of when things went as badly as they did that you kind of saw this sort of a number of years to wait to get to there?
Well, I think in my experience, Rhode Island has always lagged the recovery in the other markets. So we haven't had the robust growth. I think what we see today, though, is people being more prudent in the approach. So disciplined with their capital spends. But again, the fact that people are making capital expenditures, it's in anticipation of future growth. So I think that speaks well for the year ahead.
And any industries of the people you talk to that seem particularly, poised to grow, or where there seems to be more energy and momentum?
Across the board, I mean, it's balanced. I think we certainly have a higher concentration in the service sector here. So I think we'll see more growth and more activity in that particular sector. But generally, it's uniform.
How about in your own sector, in financial services, in banking, and banking at the level that you're at? How much has your world, the way you go to clients, to what you do for clients, how much has that changed since Lehman and since the world changed so much in 2008?
Yeah, I think the technology revolution has impacted financial services as much as any of the other sectors. I mean, today our clients look for convenience and more points of doing business and conducting their business. Mobile banking application is probably the most significant change that's occurred in the last 5 years. I think companies that invest in these new technologies are going to be the winners. In our case, we've spent a considerable amount of energy in developing a platform that we think is very robust, has been broadly accepted, and we'll continue to invest in products in the upcoming year.
You also do commercial real estate for Santander. Obviously, the biggest commercial real estate around has been the Superman building story, but there's we see vacancies in different places, but we've done a few shows about that lately, and one thing I keep hearing is that there isn't necessarily the space that people want, even if there is space out and about. What are you seeing in commercial real estate, specifically in Rhode Island right now?
Yeah, I think commercial real estate within the state of Rhode Island, the marketplace is stabilized. I think that we're seeing good stability. I don't anticipate any large new projects, nor do I see any major vacancies. In the Northeast in particular of the United States, this part of the country has recovered faster than the rest. And most in the real estate sector measure on vacancies. And I think if you look across the board, we're trending to historical levels and maybe even a little better than that. So I think it speaks well for the upcoming years. The other thing I would speak to in the real estate sector, interest rates have a big impact on real estate values and real estate growth and construction. Here, with a benign rate environment, I think that it also doesn't suggest storms on the horizon for that sector.
We had last week on the show Cheryl Merchant, CEO over at Hope Global in Cumberland, and she talked about the importance of exports to her company, and she thinks to Rhode Island companies more broadly if they're looking for growth. And I bring it up because I know Santander, you've rolled out this new, I think it's a trade portal. Tell me about that. What is that?
Yeah, so what we've done is to introduce an offering to the marketplace that helps customers do business abroad. It is an easy-to-use guide that answers as simplistic questions as what kind of currency do I trade in a particular country, to more sophisticated questions like what are the regulatory environment or the rules. And in Santander's case, we think that we can help businesses in the region expand because we're domiciled in many of these locations. The portal itself accesses over 180 countries, and in our particular case, we have colleagues who are on the ground in 40 different locations across the globe. So we think that this is a wonderful opportunity and a tool for companies to grow their sales and to conduct business abroad.
All right, that's all the time we have in this segment. I want to thank Mike Lee for being here. If you want to start selling in pesos or shekels, you'll have to check out the trade portal there from Santander. Stick with us, though, because when we come back, David Audette from M.R.T. Jewelers is going to talk about nearly a century that company's been doing that business there here in East Providence. Stick with us on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi, and now I'm very pleased to be joined by David Audette. His family owns M.R.T. Jewelers in East Providence. As I mentioned earlier, 1918 that opened. I know your family hasn't been part of it the entire time, but a long history here. And you brought a picture, and this is just terrific. This is now, tell us what we're looking at here. I think this is 1952, you said?
That's correct. The picture is improperly dated. It's 1952. This is the old Homestead building in downtown Providence. One of Providence's more historic buildings, which unfortunately is no longer there.
And these are all jewelers inside there?
Yes, two of the original owners, the co-founders of M.R.T., Andrew and Michael Radosha. That's where you get the R from in M.R.T. And the other family that was involved was Tasca. So finally we have M.R.T. When my family got involved in the business in 1972, we didn't change the name because of the long history.
A long history there.
Correct.
So tell me a little bit about for people who aren't familiar with M.R.T., what you guys do. Some people know you, and you've talked to your parents, I know, about this, about thinking you guys are just repairs, but that's not it at all. What do you do at M.R.T.?
We do just about everything, actually. Our history is in wholesaling and repairs. At one time or another, M.R.T. did probably all of the custom and repair work for the major retailers in Rhode Island at one time or another. Since my father got involved in the 70s, we've steadily increased the retail portion of our business. So you either know us as a major player in the diamond market in Rhode Island, or as someone who's serviced your jewelry that you've owned forever.
And of course, you know, jewelry, no different than most retail sectors where we've seen so many smaller stores in recent decades close their doors, and we saw the rise of chains, particularly in jewelry. You think of the mall-based chains and places like that, and yet M.R.T. has avoided that fate. What made M.R.T. different? What's been done differently at this company from others that you still have your doors open, you're still surviving and thriving?
Absolutely. A tremendous hands-on approach by the owners, number one, which gives the customer a very strong personal feeling with the purchase that's made. And that's a big part. And we've always listened to our customers. We've evolved. I've always said we're large enough to compete with any of the major box stores, certainly in this area and nationally, but small enough to adapt to these subtle changes that have plagued our industry, if you will, in the last 5 to 7 years. And
just a few years ago, I think 2006, you opened the new facility, 7,000 square feet, more than that, correct. I believe, on Warren Avenue here in East Providence. I've got to ask, 2006, a tough year, referring back to what we were talking about with Mike Lee, to just have done an expansion when we're heading into the recession. I mean, how did that roll out for you guys?
We had very high, obviously that expansion was many years in the works, and no one saw, including us, the recession coming. So yes, it was difficult, but again, because of our hands-on approach and because of the many, many, many years in the industry that we have under our belts, thank goodness, we were able to not only weather the storm, but continue to add to the services that we provided M.R.T. through even those lean years.
What was the purpose, forgetting the recession for a sec, when your family was talking about whether to move to the new space, why did you want a new space, a bigger space, and to invest the money that was necessary to do?
Customer demand. As I said, we listened to our customers, and our customers were demanding greater selection and more services. And our movement into that larger facility was directly related to that. We were able to showcase a lot of jewelry that was sitting in our safes and or vault that wasn't seeing the light of day. We just were able to be a better store in the larger location.
You mentioned the vault. I love this. There's a vault there, right,
yes,
at M.R.T. And is it true, do you still have to take all the jewelry out of the cases every night and put it in the vault?
Yes, we do.
Every night you take it all out and put it back in?
It comes out, yes, and we actually have it down to a science. It goes on bakery-style carts, and then those carts are wheeled into a bank-style vault. It's the only way to do it.
Yeah, insurers, I'm sure,
That's correct.
want you to be.
They're pretty particular about that.
I can understand why. So part of why I wanted to have you on today, Dave, is you actually have a project that you've kind of started, I think, on your own, although, of course, you have the resources of your family's company there. Yep. It's called Chainge, with an I in there, and correct. It's a new line of jewelry. You have it here. Hold it up high in front of you there so we can get it on the camera there. I think if we can get this in. Now, tell us what's different. Face it right over toward that one. What's different about this? What gave you this idea, and what are your hopes for it?
Well, Chainge is a true convertible piece of jewelry, and it is completely new to the market. It's a necklace that can be worn more than one style and more than one length, self-adjusted by the user. So it has global appeal, mass appeal to the consumer. It's also an incredibly affordable item. At $29, anyone can afford one. The charms that accompany the brand Chainge are removable. So again, it stays true to being a convertible piece of jewelry, whereas many other pieces in the market today claim to be that this particular item certainly achieves it.
Where'd you get the idea?
It's funny, I had an idea of this type of necklace in my mind for many years, and then finally it came to me. I couldn't figure out the last component to complete it. And once I did, it went very quickly from there, and over the last year and a half, I've brought it to the market. It just went live officially about 2.5 months ago, and it's been very well received.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how's it? Are you selling it? Are you selling it just at M.R.T's location? Are you online? What's the plan for that?
We have a fully e-commerce ready website where it's for sale, and it's online, also for sale at M.R.T. Jewelers. M.R.T. Jewelers being a participating retailer. Again, this project is mine, so to speak, but I was able to use the resources of M.R.T. for research and development. It's a 100% made in USA product, and almost exclusively in Rhode Island, actually. So it's a lot of fun.
I have to ask you, and I know they're a competitor, but
yes.
Alex and Ani, many people have been stunned by how fast that company has grown. I'm sure inside the jewelry industry, you guys must all discuss it a bit too. What do you make of the rapid success of that company, another Rhode Island jeweler right here? I mean, what do you take from it as a professional and expert in this industry? I
take from it a great deal of inspiration that they were able to start as small as they did and bring it to such great levels of success. That was all occurring as I was developing my product. And I could only hope for, a small fraction of what they've accomplished in a relatively short amount of time. I've seen, again, in terms of inspiration, I've seen things like Alex and Ani come and go in my tenure in the industry. So, again, in terms of inspiration, I figured, with the resources that I have available to me at M.R.T. and the great craftsmen and workers that I have there, I figured that there had to be a product that I could bring to market and change as a result of that drive.
And we only about 30 seconds left, but tell me, you have those craftsmen there. What kind of work do they're still doing that work right at M.R.T., right?
They are still doing the work right at M.R.T., and the two craftsmen that I have working with me have been with me for both of them for over 35 years. And they do work in still by hand, the old school method, if you will. And of course, we have laser welders on site now, so we do some of the new school as well. M.R.T. is a very unique commodity in the industry, if you will.
To have all that in one place.
To have all of that in one place. To have the level of retail space at 7,000 square feet and still the ability to do things custom and by hand is a very unique thing today.
All right, that's all the time we have. I want to thank David Audette and Mike Lee for both joining me on this week's Executive Suite. Be sure to tune in next week when my guest will be Dennis Hanno, the incoming president of Wheaton College up in Norton. And I'll see you next week right back here on Executive Suite. Great, Dave, thanks so much.